All right. Hello, coffee makers, not coffee takers. He is the master of cyber farms, Alfredzo B, Nash Jr., and I am the people's chief, Dr. Joseph J. Burt-Miller Jr., and we are your hosts for the Cyber Coffee Hour. Alfredzo Nash and I are products of Mount Vernon, New York, sharing our experiences and stories and sharing those of our amazing guests. We aim to share knowledge, elevate understanding, and foster a sense of belonging in this vast cyberspace. So for today's show, we will have a coffee chat with cybersecurity and GRC specialist Richea Perry. Now, Richea Perry is a seasoned GRC and cybersecurity professional with an unwavering passion for securing today's digital environments. Richea has been involved in safeguarding digital landscapes and driving business continuity amid uncertainties. Throughout his 17-plus year journey, Richea has been at the forefront of shaping resilient network infrastructures with robust governance, risk management, and compliance strategies. Richea's relentless pursuit of excellence has seen him leading and helping organizations implement security and GRC programs, ensure adherence and seamless integration of security controls, guided by best practices that mitigate information security risks. As a leader in the field, Richea has pioneered cybersecurity frameworks and orchestrated incident response plans. His multidimensional approach safeguards sensitive data and empowers teams to embrace digital innovation confidently. Richea's track record is a testament to his transformative impact, from enhancing security postures that elevate customer trust to optimizing operational efficiency without compromising resilience. He takes pride in fostering a culture of proactive vigilance where cybersecurity is not just a protocol, but a mindset ingrained in every facet of an organization. Richea, welcome to the Cyber Coffee Hour.
Thanks for having me, guys. I certainly look forward to our conversation. And also, I definitely appreciate that introduction. For one moment, I was actually wondering if
You gonna make it through it?
I'm actually
Yeah.
that person you're actually referring to. But yes, I'm really grateful.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. No, good to have you on the show, man. Appreciate it.
Thank you for
Definitely,
joining us.
and also, we have a little bit of that reciprocity as I was on your show not too long ago. So it's definitely good to have you on and continue the conversation.
All right.
But
Versus a collabing, huh?
yeah,
Yeah, sure.
yeah.
That's the awesome power of this. Community. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, just just chat a little bit. I mean, like, what's the latest been going on with you as of late? I don't know, this weekend, of course, Memorial Day weekend here for the United States. But what about you? Like, what's the latest been going on with you?
Well, as it relates to well, there are a number of things. Keeping myself fit. That's one. Previously did a half marathon with a couple of friends. That was
Half
quite new and
marathon. Oh
interesting
wow.
for
Okay.
me. So that was quite good as
You
well
you know
as.
you say it so nonchalantly, like
Yeah,
I just
like
read a marathon. You know, what I mean, nothing. That's
Yeah,
light work.
yeah.
yeah.
We eat those.
That's the end product of weeks and weeks of preparation.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so that's the stuff.
Right.
And working on producing content. For some of my courses online. So that's pretty much what I've been up to over these past few weeks.
Nice. And Fredzo, I know you had the grill going. How did that go
So
yesterday?
I have to admit, we opened it up in the season and it fell in the rain. So yesterday I was putting a bunch of pins and stuff in the grill, and I was out there tapping out the plate to hold the wood in there. So it's ready now. But it did take a little damage in the storm. So
Oh wow.
yeah, so I was out there looking like a mechanic.
But didn't you say you had two? Yeah, you had a backup, right?
Yeah, I have three. I have a backup, so I'm gonna smoke that out, and then I have the big one. It's a big grill, and then I have electric grill. So the big one took a little damage in the storm, and it's good now. I just got to put 2 more pins in, and it's ready to go.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
Nice,
so I
nice.
have those on rotation, hopefully by this afternoon today.
Okay. Good. All right. So again, Richea, definitely happy to have you here. We'll just get right into it. So, just looking over the span of your career, I don't know if you could share maybe some pivotal moments, in your career that shape your perspective on cybersecurity and GRC, and of course GRC governance, risk management, and compliance.
Well, that's a very interesting, question or point to actually start this conversation on. But the interesting thing is that prior to COVID, I mean, I believe I would say, on a career path that was quite fulfilling in terms of my level of expectation and comfort zone, in terms of how I envision myself to be, pretty much. And as it relates to the various job roles as well, in terms of where I wanted to be. So I would say that overall, all this changed, all this comfort zone change in 2020 at the start of the COVID period when I actually lost my job. So it was pretty much a part where I had gone through the various experience right out of college, right into a job. I started working at that same institution that I actually did my studies. So I never knew what it is to be out of a job for over that span of time. I've actually been into that very first job role, then into network system administration. Then I moved into information systems, being an information system manager at that point in time. So when I lost my job at that point, that in of itself became that very pivotal moment within my career path. So it was almost like I was thrown outside of my career. I had to now do a self-assessment of where I was and where it is that I wanted to go. It became so difficult in terms of applying for jobs, trying to get back into the industry. Has been and was very, very, very challenging, based on the fact that there are so many people were laid off at that point in time during the COVID period, and so many people are still affected. So many people are still out of a job as a result of COVID. So I believe that in of itself actually created that pivotal moment that created that shift from being in IT or the IT side of actually information technology. It was at that point in time that I actually shifted my focus into cybersecurity, in particularly in the GRC space. Not that I wasn't doing GRC before, but what happened is that I never knew what GRC was until during the COVID period. And the thing is that I was on LinkedIn searching for various job opportunities. I immersed myself into so many platforms, trying to study, trying to upskill, trying to prepare for various certifications. So via networking, there were a couple of people, people like Ken Underhill and a number of others who actually say, why not try GRC? And I was like, GRC? What is GRC? So at that point, I never
mythical
know.
being?
So yeah, exactly. On a collective sense, I never knew what GRC was. So at that point, I began to do my research. He actually created a structure for me, talking about the power of this network and this community, to say these are the things I needed to do. And he pretty much created a career path for me. And from that day until now, I have no regrets in terms of where I am at this point in time, in terms of cybersecurity and GRC, and I would in terms of changing my overall trajectory as a career path.
So, and Richea, if I may, as you share that, and Alfredzo can attest to this. Like, we've had guests that share similar sentiments when it came. COVID around 2020 was a turning point for a lot of folks. Where they switched careers. Whether because they had to, because they lost their job, or they wanted to because out of fear of losing their job, they want to try to get into cybersecurity. And as we mentioned, programs like Udemy, Coursera, what have you, they saw a big bump in activity because a lot of folks were training and trying to upskill and like I said, trying to get into the cybersecurity IT field. So, but with that said, as you mentioned, with COVID, being that pivotal point in your life, do you feel so? Let's say COVID never happened. Would you still have that drive or have that pursuit, for this career change, or do you think that things would have still pretty much stayed the same if that never happened?
I would say it's kind of difficult to say whether or not things would have changed drastically. However, where I am now, I do not think, based on what I have achieved now, the accomplishment in terms of the various courses that I've actually published, the people that I know network with, people like yourself, people like Alfredzo, the strong network. I mean, the creation of a podcast and various mentoring groups, being in a position to offer mentorship to other people in my similar case, being able to network with so many people across the globe, having building various relationships. I think that COVID, if there's such a thing as a good side of COVID, from a positive perspective, I say that it has tremendously enhanced my overall professionalism as it relates to my overall career. The mindset has changed. I think I've now elevated myself more outside of what it is that I was doing, and to have a more holistic approach to my career development. So I must say it has definitely has a positive impact on my development, and I have no regrets in terms of where I am now and moving forward.
I dig and I appreciate that reflection, because you're right. I think to Dr. Joseph's point, if COVID didn't happen, most of us would have probably been promoted into that path wherever we were. Because for me, in my personal testament, like you said, Dr. Joseph, I think folks realize how important governance and risk was prior to COVID. And then COVID enhanced the need. So in the particular role I was in, they took the compliance part out and started saying remediation. Right. And it was kind of like a promotion to really to the whole enterprise and the rest of the industry that, hey, we need to do this proactively. So that's the first time my mindset changed. And I started seeing, to your point, Richea, the network of folks that were doing the roles already, and the mass, like you said, shift of folks from everywhere coming into governance and risk compliance, not just the organization I was in, but across the industry. A lot of folks started shifting to that as like the bridge into cybersecurity operations. Right. So I respect that. I resonate with that, because that kind of, just like you, I heard it. It kind of opened my eyes to like, what is this field that everyone's rushing to?
Yeah.
I knew cyber operations, but I didn't know the subset. I didn't know, like, governance, risk compliance was this big bridge into the field.
Yeah, and that's the ironic thing. I was one of those people who were very super technical. That's my background.
Same.
In the servers, in the switches, routers, you name it. I was under the tables, on the decks, running the cables. That was where my passion was. But all of this changed when I recognized that I was not able anymore to actually do these things physically. So that was a total transformation. And for sure, I definitely do not want to go back to that part anymore. I think I've had enough.
Right. So that plays into the next step here. With over 17 years in the field, you undoubtedly witnessed the evolution of cybersecurity threats, right? How do you stay ahead of the curve in such a rapidly changing land, that being the threat landscape? And what strategies do you employ to ensure security programs remain effective against emerging threats?
Wow, that's a very, 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 good question. Well, keeping up has always been a challenge, and it can also be very, very challenging. I mean, rapid paces at which these various technologies change, these various concepts and about technology, security practices. So I must say that's one of my strongest or best approaches or strategies to actually keeping up with this has to do with being informed. That has been the key thing for me, being informed. So I have my schedule of podcasts that I listen to daily that ensure that I'm actually on top of the latest happenings in cybersecurity, the latest threats, technologies, things that are currently happening. That's one. I engage with various online webinars. I mean, there was a point in time that almost every single day, when I look at my calendars right into the future, every slot almost going into weekends, there were podcasts, webinars. That's how I learn. That's how I build relationships. That's how I know what is happening. And also subscribing to various magazines and various
like newsletters and stuff like that.
and you name it. So that I'm always abreast of. So that's all. That's my key way of actually keeping abreast. As it relates to strategies, I would say within our environments, I mean, this varies based on the nature of environments, right? As it relates to the various strategies that can be used to help organization keep abreast of their cybersecurity programs and all of that.
I like that aspect. You say it's such, and I'm kind of learning this as I go to. They say knowing is growing in the landscapes, actual landscapes, like the natural ones. But what you just provided me, as enlightened me on it, was the environments that change, the ecosystems too, where everybody's program is not the same. So I have to
Right.
learn, I have to stay abreast to how does this organization do, let's say, the cybersecurity framework. It might not be the same exact way as XYZ environment. So I dig that. And I'm right there with you. No one is growing and staying in the loop like that. Do you happen to do any like meetups or in addition to the webinars or anything like that?
Well, just I mean, we have this monthly meetup that I have a group of us guys that normally we meet together to discuss various articles or things that might be going on within, for example, affecting one of us within that particular group. They might need help within a particular area, whether personally or career-wise or within their job space. Then we come together, we have discussion to say, if you're working, for example, on a security program or whatever it is, and you have a challenge, we meet together, we pencil things out, and we say, hey, this is an idea, this is what you can do. So that is how we actually keep our community going. As it relates to meetups.
Excellent. So your emphasis on. Oh, go ahead, Doctor.
Yes.
Joseph, you got it?
No, I was just gonna say no. I think that's great. I mean, you're having a support group, and I'm assuming you're having individuals from that they're not all coworkers, but those from just work within the industry. But
Yeah,
they
exactly.
may
Yeah.
have, they may have common issues, and I think just having that brain trust, to have someone to discuss it with and bounce ideas off of, or even just talk about a problem, because someone within your group could have went through that already and say, hey, I did this, this is what I did, XYZ. So
Yes,
I think that's great, and I think more people should try to employ that.
100%.
It does make a difference.
Yeah. So your emphasis on fostering this culture of proactive vigilance, right, within organizations that we just mentioned is very admirable. Excuse me. Could you delve into some of the practices and incentives you've implemented to instill this mindset across various teams?
Well, one of the things that we could do, one of the things I normally engage in, has to do with, for example, I would say one of the things I think that works a lot so far is, for example, you might want to call it maybe where people are encouraged to, for example, to say something. For example, they see something that's happening within the organization to develop that culture of being aware. See something, say something type of culture.
Right.
That's one of the things we try to do in terms of promoting where employees feel, I would say, comfortable, raising maybe their concerns about any suspicious activities within their organization. So it's almost like a case of recognizing, rewarding, and also rewarding our employees who will proactively report various potential incidents within an organization. So when employees understand that they are important, their opinions are valued, then based on the fact that your end users are one of the most targeted, I would say, path via which adversaries can actually attack an organization. So when they feel a part of the overall system, that their opinions are important, then we have a more receptive culture within that organization as it relates to cybersecurity.
Yeah, I totally dig it. And so something I've experienced maybe once or twice in my career to that regard was they spun up these, security champion programs. So they didn't have to be on the security team. But to your point, if it was every employee that was saying something, when they saw something, they were incentivized to either one, fix it and partner with the security team and get access to the security team, which was amazing, right? And I've only seen this work twice, right? But to your point, the incentive to do that. You knock that out the park, right? There's got to be an incentive like a capture the flag or hackathon or bug bounty internally so I can get exposure to those folks and truly feel like I matter in the security team. So yeah, 100%, that resonates.
Yeah, and
So
the reason why
no, go ahead.
Yeah, so the reason why I actually see that was very important for me is the fact that so often I see where I would say IT folks, sadly to say, at times make end users look stupid or feel stupid.
Yeah.
And as a result, they tend not to speak a lot, to say what is happening. But the fact is, these are people that are actually on the ground, interfacing with the systems, on the telephones, who are always, I would say, vulnerable. to the attacks that can actually affect an organization. So that has always been one of my big points in terms of having end users feel comfortable with talking, to saying something, so that we have a very good relationship to create a atmosphere or a culture within the organization that creates that system or that culture of security.
Yeah.
So it's like you're implementing like a shared responsibility. So it's not
Exactly.
just solely on the IT department, what have you. It's everyone's job to look out for it. So you see something, as you said, you see something, say something, something that doesn't seem right, report it. And as you mentioned, having that culture to where everyone feels comfortable doing so. They won't do it in fear of any repercussions or being talked down to, what have you, because it's all in an effort to keep the organization secure. So just to have that mindset to say, hey, we're all doing this together. We need you to let us know, as far as the IT team, to, hey, we need you to let us know what's going on, and vice versa. That's how we could best help you. So no, I think that's great to get that established, and that way you have a stronger, a more fortified cybersecurity posture.
Yeah,
Sure.
100%. They call that posture a community of practice, where it's just normal to engage in that manner. It's just normal to go to the expert, reach out to in the environment and know the environment better than most of the folks. Like you said, those folks are getting socially engineered every day, right? So it's easier to compromise them when they don't feel like they have a voice, right? Or they don't want, or they're fearful and engage the security team because they're going to get pushed back, or what do they call it, the Department of No. No, we can't do this, right? So
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
So, Richea, as we know, like innovation comes often hand in hand with risk. How do you, in your opinion, how do you balance the need for robust, security measures with the necessity to facilitate digital innovation within organizations?
That's a very good question, and that has always been a very challenging point. I mean, at the end of the day, when I deal with, the experience of actually having to deal with various executives, people at various levels within an organization, it has
Right.
always been a case of, do we need functionality, or is a case of, technology versus functionality versus the risk at the end of the day. So I try to establish that level of, making the risk known,
yeah,
helping the powers that be to actually develop from the get-go their risk appetite, what it is
Right.
that they're willing to, I would say, sacrifice
Yeah.
at the at the inclusion of, the technology within their organization. So once that is established, when they come to that acceptable risk appetite, then it's more easy, or the integration of various technology within that organization. So that's the key thing as it relates to creating that balance in terms of, for those various security measures within the organization.
Right. Yeah. No. I think that's a great point, because as an organization, they need to know what are they willing to accept. Just knowing the risk, as so you lay it out. Hey, this is what your these are your risks. These are the levels. Are you willing to deal with this, or are you going to take some actions to mitigate it? But no, you lay those cards out before them. Say, hey, and let them make the decision. Okay, this is what we're willing to accept. This is what we're not going to accept. And this is what we're trying to mitigate.
Yeah, to
But
piggyback on that real
Sure.
quick, a lot of it is the technical versus business risk. So as sensitive
Right.
as you mentioned it, with a lot of these upper echelon and folks, you kind of got to get in their face a little bit and say, like you said, Richea, hey, we're not going to break it. We're going to build it correctly. And in that feature on board that you want in innovation, security is right there. And tag it back to security doesn't cost that much. What costs a whole lot is, if we don't put this feature in, it could potentially be
Exactly.
impact the business side more than you think it would.
I mean, it's gonna cost a ton after you get breached,
Right,
and they
right.
try to fix it.
And
Right.
that's how I heard it when Richea said it. Negotiating that conversation of the risk is kind of like a double-edged sword. You gotta let them know, hey, the security thing is cheap. It's gonna go right out with the feature and innovation there. It's not a big deal.
Yeah, security is relatively cheap in comparison to the cost of actually dealing with that, not having the
Yeah.
security in place. But I think one of the things I always try to, in all my doings as it relates to security, regardless of what it is that they want to implement in terms of facilitating digital innovation, it's never my job to prevent or to stop or to say you cannot do this. I mean, I'm not in that position. I'm not the one who owns this organization. They have the power, they have the resources to do whatever it is that they want to do to keep that organization running from a financial perspective. My job is always to say, if it is that you want to do X, then these are the risks. What it is that you're willing to accept. How can we best safeguard the risk of implementing X, Y, Z technology within the organization? So once that is established and everyone is on a level playing field in terms of understanding those risks, then all is well.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure you've had to deal with like some real boneheads where, or just some folks who are just real stubborn. Like you try to explain and say, look, like your company is gonna really fall through if you don't do this, and they don't want to listen. And I know you've probably had to deal with something like that, and he's like, hey, man, it's not my company.
Right. So let me tackle that real quick, Richea. So I want you to help me with this too. So when I was doing physical security unmentionable years ago, I had a friend named Dravi, and he used to say, hey, it's not my father's company. And I never understood like what he was saying when I was so young. Now, all these years later, I get it. It's not my father's revenue. It's not my family's revenue. It's not my family's risk. How do you get past those boneheads, Dr. Joseph said, and not be passionate to that extent, like it's your dad's company or somebody you care about? How do you leverage that playing field with these boneheads, like Dr. Joseph said?
It's quite very, I think that has been one of the most challenging tasks. It's pretty much, and this is not something that I can really teach someone how to actually approach. I can only make suggestions. To be honest, I can only make suggestions because you have various personalities, and things are not always black and white as they seem in terms of do X, do Y. But when you have to deal with personalities, you really have people within organizations that it's not very difficult to really describe those personalities. But at the end of the day, as soon as something goes wrong, then that is when you experience the wrath or the vengeance of these people.
Yeah,
it's never very easy.
Be like, hey, I told you so. I told you.
Exactly. I get excited at those times. I keep the receipts.
That has always been the case.
Right.
So in terms of collaboration, collaboration is key in cybersecurity, especially when it comes to incident response. So can you talk us through maybe like a notable incident response plan that you've orchestrated or drum up, and any challenges you may have faced?
Okay, as it relates to incident response plan, just to reflect, going back maybe a few years, I remember working in this organization, and luckily enough, we actually had some understanding. I would not say it's really a formal incident response plan, but we had actually started in terms of developing a team, a template, a structure, and it so happened that there was this particular phishing campaign, or I think maybe it's I'm not sure, I can't recall exactly the name of this particular virus or malware, but an employee within the organization actually clicked on a link, and the link encrypted all the files inside that particular drive for that department. So what happened is that we had done a training before.
So it's like a ransomware type of.
I don't think the name ransomware was actually coined at that point in time.
Right.
Gotcha.
Okay. If I can recall clearly, I don't think the overall thing of ransomware was such a big topic back in the day. When that particular one came out. From a financial perspective, that is. So they clicked on that link and it encrypted the files. But based on the training that we had established to see and to speak, so they immediately alerted the IT department, and we were able to make the necessary communication. First thing, end users, you see something that is not inside the norm or within the norm, you say something. So they were able to reach out to IT. IT would then reach out to our manager at the point in time. was then able to make the necessary communication to or powers that be to say this is a position, this is a critical department, their files have been affected, and we're able to pull from the various backups. We're able to isolate the affected areas based on the fact that the network was segmented. So all of these things. So that was one of the things that I can actually recall. So it was not the easiest thing in terms of doing all of that forensic, checks, background checks, auditing to ensure that all was well. But I must say that this is not one of the easiest process as it relates to incident response. It can be very, very complex. The good thing on our part is that the network was segmented, and following that line of communication, we're able to prevent the spreading of this encryption taking place or taking down the entire network.
Right, and that training was pre-established to say something you mentioned, right? It was pre-established. Okay, so that's perfect. So that helped assist in the forensic work that you had to do?
Yes,
that
exactly.
Every segment notified.
Exactly.
Right. Awesome.
That's what we did.
Awesome.
Yes.
That's awesome. Awesome. Yeah, so again, we're here with Richea Perry, cybersecurity and GRC specialist here on the Cyber Coffee Hour. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and share with your friends. So as we transition here, and again, Richea, thank you again for being here on the show.
It has been my pleasure.
As we mentioned, I'm sorry.
No, I was saying that it has been my pleasure so far.
Oh, yes, absolutely. So as we mentioned at the top of the show, we did a little bit of reciprocity as I was on your show, the Cyber JA podcast. And if you could just share with our listeners here in the Cyber Coffee Hour about how you guys started and just your baby, the Cyber JA podcast.
All right, great. What as it relates to the Cyber JA podcast, is it the case where you want to understand the story behind the Cyber JA podcast, or my journey into cybersecurity?
Just how you guys started with a podcast, like what led to you getting started with that?
Okay, great, sure, no worries. That's a very interesting one. So going right back, so I tell you the going right back to COVID 2020.
Nice.
That's where it all started again. So being online, building the relationship that I had, creating my network, immersing myself into all of these various learning platforms, Coursera, LinkedIn Learning, Udemy courses. I begin to develop so much knowledge, so much understanding of so many concepts as it relates to cybersecurity and GRC that I previously never had to in a great depth in terms of what I know now. So as a result of that, I started to post a lot, engage a lot on the platforms, and there were many people who saw me as someone who knew a lot. They saw me as a subject matter expert, if you want to say that way. I never considered myself one, to date. So many people started reaching out to me to say, how do I start in GRC? How do I start in cybersecurity? How can I actually develop my cybersecurity career journey? And all of these questions. So what I normally did was to have one-on-one conversation, helping people to create or to develop their roadmaps or their career roadmaps. And I reached a point where I was saying that, no, there is no way I can actually keep up with so many people. I reached a point of actually burning my system to, I just could not keep up with the amount of DMs. So I said, let me find a strategic way to provide a repository of knowledge that people could actually tap into anytime without I being there. And that was when the idea of, why not have a podcast? Why not have professionals share their journey, tell their story, their challenges, experiences of actually getting into cybersecurity space, and having all of this documented, then people could always, the same question that they would be asking me, I pretty much had a machine in place to say, hey, look, go to this source.
Right.
Listen, go through the resources, and you can get all the answers you want. Go to my YouTube channel, and I constantly listen to the questions that they have, and I develop material around those questions, and I post them onto LinkedIn and onto the podcast. So you can always go. You will see various topics that you will find something to provide you with the answer that you're looking for without having to consistently be doing the same thing over and over. So that's the
smart.
overall journey.
That's smart.
The term "cite me, don't fight me" comes to mind. It's like, don't fight me. It's just like, don't double back on me and fight me on what I said. Especially. So, what was the challenge? Was it more the DMs or the folks like, "Hey, help me with my roadmap," and then they ask 20 more DMs once you give them advice?
I think that was also one point in which you do so. Is, for example, not to say that I'm always passionate about helping, but I also want people to think for themselves, pretty much.
Yeah.
If I give you X, try to do Y. Don't rely on me to give you X, Y, Z. Try to find something. Try to discover things on your own. And there were actually people who wanted me to actually give them A plus B plus C plus D. And I was saying no.
Oh, that was coming to you for the whole alphabet.
No.
So I've seen that. I've seen that in industry, and I'm kind of shocked because now you confirmed it for me, right? Do you see folks with no roadmap wanting you to build it for them? Have you seen any folks that already had like, hey, I want to be a SOC analyst, right? Have you always seen these folks that come with the whole build my roadmap for me type mentality?
I have seen people like those, and when I see people with that mentality that just want to, I would say, pull from just want to get mentality, that's it for me. If you're not in a position to say, this is what I have, this is what I've already started, how can I move from this point? I need to see something. You have to bring something to the table. So
that's a great point, because and I think that's a lesson for those listening when if you're seeking out a mentor. It has to be a two-way street. It can't just you like, as you said, you just try and get. That has, just keep in mind of the person you're asking too. Like, they're going to be busy, especially if you're trying to get someone to mentor you that has quite a bit of experience in the field. They may be quite busy in what they're doing. There has to be some sort of give and take. It can't just be get, because after a while, as Richea just explained, you're gonna be like, you know what, I'm good. I'm done. Because what am I getting out of this? I'm just getting a headache out of this. So
it's for the mentors too. You have to be able to understand that the journey you take, it might be tremendously harder for a mentee. Tremendous, especially especially the pros, right? So I'm telling myself too, but working yourself backwards, the mentors have to be humble too. Like, hey, everybody's not going to try to climb that mountain and take this trail like you did, or go through the rigors, like you said, during the pandemic, transitioning with the career, not knowing where to go. Some people can't take that journey. So a lot of times, even I have to check myself too, because you realize you might be overwhelming the mentee. You might give them so much they're like, oh my God, like,
oh yeah.
This is a lot. Me too. This is what it takes to get just to the GRC role. Never mind the other side of the house, threat intel, SOC. I always pick on Try Hack Me, but to your point, immersive labs, Udemy, that path is not clear for the newbie, and sometimes the experienced person has to say, well, is that correct? Is that path correct for this particular individual? Because it's a lot. It'll be a lot of work to put in,
And that's why I'm sorry. Lastly, that's why I think it's important to have a mentor for different stages. You don't want to just rely on just one. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So for example, let's say you seek out a mentor who is CEO of a company, cybersecurity company. They may not be the best person to ask, like, hey, I'm trying to get into cyber. Like, what are your thoughts? They're too far removed. You know what I mean?
That's the thing. They
can be like, hey, I need a CISO. Here you go.
Yeah, that's it.
Right. Yeah. You should seek a mentor for different stages. So if you want someone that's, like you said, as you're starting to get started in your career, maybe look for someone that like intermediate. Maybe 5 to 7 years in. Sure. That's a little bit more reasonable, but don't ask a 30+ year vet. Like I said, CEO, CISO of a company. They're too far removed. They
gotta take this pain.
Right. They don't got time. They don't have time. They don't have time to go through all that with you. Come on, right. You gotta be realistic. Yeah. You gotta be realistic.
That segues into a good point too. So, Richea, what would you say are some obstacles in addition to some of you already might have mentioned that you might have had to overcome to get where you are today? particularly, so let's do that. Let's do this. Let's tie it back into like, yes, you went out and to make this repository, and as you're building this repository, what obstacles in your career did you have to overcome while building out the podcast and maintaining your cyber career? Let's not stack it too much. Sorry.
That's cool. I would say obstacles has to do with time, right? Time
Right.
and dedication, especially with various time zones, right?
Oh, yeah.
That was and has been one of my greatest, challenge to this point. There were points in time that I was saying to myself, like, no, I'm done. This is it. But the passion, the drive, when I recognized that people actually valued what I was saying, when I look at the statistics and the reports, and I look and see people, there are people in countries that I don't even remember the names of right now, who are actually sending shout out to say, look, we listened to your podcast and this actually makes sense for us.
Right.
That is what actually makes me feel like it's the effort and the work is worthwhile. So
Right.
that is what actually keeps me going. That's my greatest challenge. Time zones, differences, scheduling. And so the great thing is that I've actually reached a point in my podcast whereby I think I've had enough in terms of that very first, I would call it very first phase of the podcast, as I'm actually shifting the focus now. I think I've actually built up a repository in terms of interviews or conversations that can actually help people to get into cybersecurity. So I'm actually shifting that focus to a different phase that has to do with helping people who are actually having that circle that says open to work. I want people to know, expose what value they can actually bring to the marketplace. So give them a voice so they are now able to talk and to express themselves outside of what is on their resume. And I think by doing this, they will now stand a better chance to represent themselves to the marketplace. So that's where my focus is right now.
Yeah, that's
no, sorry. Go ahead, Alfredzo.
Yeah, that's respectable because you're right. A lot of these folks beyond the resume are up against, the tracking systems, the hiring managers, the different phases into an organization. But what and I've witnessed it too. What you're saying is to give them that edge against all of those already, let's say invisible obstacles, right? And have that personality and persona shine through all of those challenges. Right, because I feel like a lot of times the resume can be boring. I've even gotten feedback like that. Like, your resume is pretty boring, man. Like, sitting down and talking with you, like your personality outshines that. And I try to keep that in the back of my head, as well as, like you said, back in the day, everybody wanted to see that black and white guru unicorn on paper, and then you get there and it's like, well, the job is like, man. So kind of preparing people with that personality and the rigor, like you said, to get through those obstacles is honorable, man. I'll give that credit to you, man.
And I think it also even ties in, to what our previous guest we had on the show, Ms. Zinette Kamal, who she specializes in branding, creating your cybersecurity brand. Because I definitely believe that you have to have a way to really stand out, within this field, and she was able to really capitalize, and she even created a course actually on if we talk about creating courses, creating content. She has a course on LinkedIn as well. But as you mentioned, for those that that are looking for work, and what you're doing, Richea, and giving those people a voice to try to stand out and get themselves looked at, I think that still ties into as part of creating that brand. Now they themselves have to really take it a step further, how they want to be perceived and how they want to be viewed within the cybersecurity world. But that's all part of it. That helps to, like I said, for you to stand out and get more eyeballs towards you, and that could definitely increase your chances of landing that position that you're trying to get.
Yes.
So
is that an obstacle in itself, though? I don't want to be that guy, but is the brand what about the folks who don't have a brand, or what about the folks that like the mad scientists?
That's why you got to go and get it.
Their brand might be,
but that's exactly it. You. Like I said, I guess shameless plug to Zinette. I mean, go sign up for a course.
Yeah, right. Go hit her up on LinkedIn, right?
Right. But she even stresses that's why you got to do it. I mean, yeah, if you're unfamiliar with it, that's something you got to work on. Because like as you mentioned, our friends are talking about like being the resume being boring. Yeah, you got the greatest personality, but it doesn't show through the paper. Through you know what I'm saying. So
Sure.
you have to have a way to really stand out, because also those hiring managers, they see a ton of resumes all the time. After a while, they're like, give them something different, give them something new, give them something to really attach themselves to. Like, oh man, he specializes in this. Oh, she does this. I've been following her content for a while. I want to bring her on. Give them something, like I said, to really latch themselves onto, and that way that can help really help yourself in the meantime, because as you're pursuing a job, and also to help yourself elevate as you move toward throughout a company.
Well, I guess I was coming from a little bit of a detractor side. Does the company care about that brand? I say you do all that. Do they care about that brand once you're internal to their organization?
I would say so.
Okay, I haven't seen it yet.
Because also too, you could be because also they could leverage it to where you're representing the company. You could be the face of the company.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Of course, you're staying positive, and but yeah, I mean, why not? They could leverage you to, and I've seen all the time, especially within the government space. If you're an up and coming star, I guess quote unquote star within the organization, they could use you for like their media outlets, or their media
so
initiatives.
I get what you're saying. The advocacy, I've only seen it work for one gentleman. Shout out to Kelsey Hightower, if he ever sees this out in the Mediverse. And then the second person that comes to mind at least 10 or 15 years ago was a gentleman named Kevin Green. Now, on your side of the fence, everybody might know Kevin, right? On the private side, everybody knows Kelsey Hightower. So that's I can see that happening. I'm saying I've never personally encountered. Hopefully it will come out there. But to Richea's point, there needs to be a mentor for that too. There needs to be a mentor that says, like you said, Zanet Kamel, also the cyber operations folks. Everybody has to have that unique brand to get to these organizations. I don't see that happening yet.
We see it right now. I mean, look at CISA director Jen Easterly. She's right, but all again, over nobody, the place.
Public and private. That's what I was about to say. Right. She had to leap the fence. Right now, recently, you got to look at where else am I different from her brand? Is what I'm trying to say. Or different because it echoes. It's an echo chamber, right? Everybody knows who director is in the public sector. No question about it. Some people in the private sector may be like, I don't have that in my organization, that personality. How do I find it? So that's what I'm trying to go to. Like, not everybody is blessed to have a director Easterly resume candidate.
Right.
And they don't have it in their organization, right? So that's where I'm going. Like, if you're somebody new, that could be overwhelming to build all of that brand out from, hey, I'm a guy in my basement starting a podcast. So that's where I'm going. And then even shout out to Kelsey Hightower, right? I watched him over the years, and Google had his back. Everywhere they could possibly send that man on the face of the planet, he was out there like, Kelsey Hightower's got this, right? So I'm trying to find that, I don't know, like amalgamation between like the brand actually landing and the company supporting that brand everywhere they go. Think about all the like cybersecurity and tech, right? Blacks in tech. Blacks and green, like all of that advocacy has to be an echo chamber. I'm just trying to bring a thought-provoking conversation here. I haven't seen many organizations back that, and that's why I think they don't get the candidates they want with the brand, right? A lot of folks, hey, I'm open to work too, right? So a lot of these folks, like you said, Richea, I look on LinkedIn, I see rock stars. I see the podcasts, the TED Talks, the white papers, the webinars, and then it's like open to work on LinkedIn. The brand is there, why is it not landing in and why are some of these organizations that need people not supporting?
Yeah, you definitely have a point there in terms of, I've actually seen people when you look at their profile, their track record, what it is that they're doing, you're saying to yourself, if they say hoping to work, it has to be one of two things. They are unemployed or they're employed and seeking new opportunities.
Yep.
That's how I normally look at that perspective. Yeah.
And to your point, the self-employment becomes that I need to reinforce my brand because it doesn't exist in this organization. So a lot of times, to the flip side, yes, all shout outs to Director Easterly, Kelsey Hightower, Kevin Green, shout out to you, Don't Bug Me. That brand is well established. But then when you say that's the bar that doesn't exist in these top tier companies, self-employment becomes a thing. Now you need to be known as the cybersecurity person and the entrepreneur. that doesn't exist in these other organizations. I mean, I could be on like a rant. I'm sorry, but I think that's the part, the connective tissue that's leading to more shortages in the workforce on both sides. I'm not sparing public because they're a well-oiled machine, and I'm not giving private any break either. Because if you want to find that candidate, you got to put the work in too to say, does this brand exist in my organization?
Right.
Sure.
So, Richea, as you work through the day, like what's your go-to coffee or even tea that gets you going through the day?
That's a good one.
Best question.
For me, I must say that I really don't have a particular brand as it relates to coffee. For me, it's very difficult for me to really explain. It has to have a certain mix, a certain, I would say, energy or kick.
Yes.
I cannot, for example, the best way to say it is I cannot, for example, ask someone to say, go and make me a cup of coffee. No. They will never ever do it in terms of getting it to how it is that I really want it. I do it a certain way, all of that. So once it doesn't matter the brand, once it actually gives me that particular feeling, then that's good enough.
That's
it has to be that right particular feeling. I guess you guys can. I mean, I'm the same experience.
Real quick, Dr. Joseph, we have a standing bounty now in the Cyber Coffee Hour for something called green tea matcha with an espresso shot. So I'm going to look for that because two guests have come on, Dexter Henry and then our recent guest, Ryan Smith. They both tried green matcha with espresso, and they say the kick is like nothing they've experienced before. So that bounty is open to everybody that's watching the show to try it out because that's my next move, and I hope I survive it.
I was gonna say, be warned because it's definitely gonna keep you up. So
right.
Don't take it at night.
Yeah.
And lastly, here, any hobbies, interests, anything you like to do, like recreational activities that you like to do that get your mind off of cybersecurity when you're not working. That's like what you like to do for fun.
Sure. Well, keeping fit, exercise, going to the gym early in the morning, doing early morning runs up from about 4 a.m. in the morning. You
said 4 a.m.? You said 4 a.m.?
That's
wow,
it.
Nice.
Yeah, that's normally my good time in terms of between 4 to 6. Yeah, that's normally when it's all nice in the mornings in terms of getting up, heading out. So normally by 4:30, I'm on the road. Yeah, so I really do that.
And I've gotten myself in that habit, because if I don't do it in the first thing in the morning, then forget it, because the schedule gets too crazy.
I guess I'll make that my excuse too then, because I'm not getting up before 4 a.m. Be real, I have to get super motivated to do that.
It definitely takes discipline, man. You gotta,
it does.
Definitely don't say it as an easy thing.
It does take a lot of discipline.
Absolutely. Well, again, Richea, we definitely appreciate you coming through here on the Cyber Coffee Hour. I had a great time, great conversation. But before we go, anything you want to share with the audience before we roll out?
Well, one of the things definitely I want to share is that, guys, keep tuned into the Cyber Coffee Hour. This is one podcast that is doing great in the industry, one of a kind, has a different spin, and that's pretty much it. And for sure, I definitely enjoy this conversation. And you guys are doing awesome work in terms of the value you are providing to the community as well.
We appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And thank you to you tuning in to the Cyber Coffee Hour. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, share, and subscribe. Follow us on all of our platforms. You can find the Cyber Coffee Hour on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts. That's it. That's a wrap. We out of here. Peace.
Take it easy.
Bye.